Come in. You have a question? You want to learn about U.S. history? All of it? Well, boy, did you come to the right place, because here we are, junior year U.S. history. This is your introduction to flip videos. I am in the back of the classroom right now, probably put my head down in shame. Maybe I'm hiding over there by the cabinets. But this is how we're going to be doing our notes for the year. So as you'll come to learn, I am not funny. I am not clever, but that does not stop me from trying. So before every video, I tell a little joke. And if you have jokes for me, please let me know, because I'm sure Google is sick of me asking these questions and asking them to tell me jokes, and they're not great. But my joke today, what does a nosy pepper do? It gets jalapeno business. Boom! There it is. Take some time, laugh it off. I'm still sitting in the back over there in the corner, embarrassed as I'm going through this, but here we are in U.S. history. So before we get into the really America Revolution and what that's all going to entail, I think it's important to know a little bit about the founding of America. And I'm talking about the American continent as a whole. Now, the founding of it from early time period, there's a lot of uncertainty. Now, they kind of do some carbon dating and so some thermoluminescence dating to figure out how long ago people have been here. But kind of one of the general consensus is it was about 15,000 years ago before Native Americans arrived in the American colony area. So once that takes place, they're going to start to spread out. Yeah, it was very, very nomadic, but then people realized that, yeah, you could live off the land, you could plant crops, you could grow certain things, and depending on where you were, you could grow certain things a little bit better. Maybe you had some rivers for fishing and things like that. But eventually, Europe is going to get involved, and that's going to start with the slide here, the European exploration. And this really, it begins after the Middle Ages. Now, just like last year in World History, I know you guys talked about the Middle Ages, but the Middle Ages, really, it's not a great time period in Europe. There's a lot of disease. It's pretty dirty, pretty disgusting, as I'm sure you remember some of those stories from last year. And if you don't remember, ask me. I'll tell you some pretty gross things that happened during the Middle Ages. But after the Middle Ages, things are starting to turn up, and Europeans, they become interested in resources from Asia. And a lot of the resources, they're very luxurious goods. So I'm talking like things like silk, I'm talking things like indigo, but also some pretty basic ones, like some spices for your food. And the reason that they would do that is a lot of the food back then, it was rotten, it was moldy, it was disgusting. So, hey, what better way to hide that than just pouring a bunch of salt on it? But because they're interested in these resources, that is where European exploration is going to begin. And when I'm talking about European exploration, really I'm talking about 4 major countries. So that's going to be Portugal, Spain, France, and England. Now, Portugal, they're the ones taking the lead in the search for a trade route. Now, they're trying to figure out and come up with a way to go from Africa to Asia, get there as quick as possible. And, you know, if you can kind of think of a mental map of Africa, generally speaking, they would just have to go all the way around it and back up, and it's going to take several months. And because of that, it's wasting time. They want to become a little bit more efficient. So they come up with the idea of, hey, let's just go west and see what happens. So Portugal, they begin this in the 1400s, but really a lot of this credit is going to go to Christopher Columbus. Now, he is funded by Spain, and yes, he's an Italian sailor, but he doesn't get any funding from Italy. So Spain says, hey, we'll give you this money, we'll give you these 3 ships, and you're going to sail across the Atlantic in 1492, which I'm sure you probably all know the poem. Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492, and I'll stop embarrassing myself there. And when he lands, he thinks he discovers this new land. He thinks he discovers this new territory. Now, he doesn't land actually in the United States. He lands in San Salvador, which is going to be in the Caribbean island. But he thinks he discovered this new land and this new territory, and once he has discovered this, word is going to spread. All these other countries are going to start to get more and more involved. So expeditions, they are going to continue. Now, Amerigo Vespucci is probably going to be the next person that you may have heard his name, but maybe not too much about what he actually did. But he is going to land, and he is going to really just go and explore South America for Spain. And in 1494, there is going to be a big issue. And that big issue is who is going to control this new land? Who's going to control this new territory? Because you have all these different countries that are coming in and saying that, well, it's mine. Kind of like squatters' rights. I was here first. I get it. But that's going to lead to more war. That's going to lead to some more bloodshed. So in 1494, the Treaty of Tordesillas is going to be confirmed. And what that does is Spain has the right to all the newly discovered land if they want. If they don't want it, they can give it up to whoever they want to. That's kind of when the fighting starts to begin. But they are going to be the ones who are in charge. They're going to be the ones that have the money, and they are going to be the ones controlling the land in the Americas. Now, they are going to send conquistadors. Now, conquistador is just a term. It translates to English as conquerors. Now, they're going to send conquerors over to this new area. They're going to send them to the Americas for the purpose of collecting resources. Now, really, they're going to do this for what we call the 3Gs. So the first one, not 3G as in cell phone service. Can't believe I just said that again. That's embarrassing. But 3G, gold. You want to make as much money as you possibly can. You want to do it for God. And you want to be remembered. So glory. So gold, God, and glory. They're going to be the reasons that they are going to start to take over this new area and this new land. Now, Hernan Cortez, he shows up and he has the most advanced weaponry. Now, when I say the most advanced weaponry, he's got cannons, he has guns, and he has horses. Now, I know a lot of you guys grow up around horses, those of you that are out in the country, even the people who live here in town. Yeah, you probably have went and rode those before, but if you didn't know what a horse was and you see it just dressed in body armor, you probably would be a little terrified. And the Aztecs, they definitely were terrified. And, you know, there's still people that are terrified of them today. Me, don't make fun of me for it. But anyways, Hernan Cortez, he is going to defeat the Aztecs in Mexico. So he's going to be able to spread religion. He's going to make a ton of money. And he's going to have glory. And they want to spread south, but Cortez is like, hey, I'm already remembered for this. Someone else can take over. So he sends his number 2 in command, Francisco Pizarro, to go and conquer the Incans. And this is kind of a unique story how this whole conquering takes place. He goes to the Incan Empire. He tells them that he wants them to convert to Christianity. If they do that, there is not going to be any bloodshed. There's not going to be any war. He hands the leader the Bible, and what he does with it, drops it. And because he drops it, Francisco Pizarro says that is enough to declare war, and they're going to conquer the Incans. And really, that's where Spain's empire is going to start to grow. Also, Juan Ponce de Leon are going to claim Florida for Spain. And then, as I said, they're trying to spread religion. They're going to do this really in 2 separate ways. One of them, they're going to be a little bit more peaceful. They're going to say, hey, this is what the religion is all about. They're going to kind of move in, build a church, and show what the religion is going to be like. The other one, they're going to come in and they're going to force people to change and convert to Christianity. And I'll ask you in class which one that you think is going to be more effective. And then the last thing to talk about on this one, just very, very briefly, some of the cultural changes. Now, when the European explorers, when they got to the Americas, they were not smart. I'll be honest. They were very intelligent in the ways of how things should go while they're in Europe. My phone's ringing. It's okay, it's just my wife. They're very, very smart of the way things are going to be going in Europe, but when they get to the Americas, I think it's going to be the exact same thing. And they struggle. Life is going to be really tough. And we talked a little bit more about Jamestown in the next video. You're going to see just how rough and how difficult life was going to be. So Native Americans, these cultural changes are going to be 2 ways. The first thing, and I'd say that the Native Americans are very important. Just I can't stress enough how vital they were for European exploration. But they're going to introduce new farming methods, new farming techniques to the Europeans. And then the Europeans are also going to adopt many of the Native American inventions, such as canoes, snowshoes, ponchos, and things like that. Now, Europeans did give some different technology and things like that to the Native Americans, such as wheat, such as rice. They showed them what new weaponry was going to be like. And it's just going to be kind of a time period of sharing early on. But those consequences, they turn deadly, and they turn deadly pretty quick. Now, one of the things was diseases. Both sides, both the Europeans and the Native Americans were used to and accustomed to the diseases of their homeland. And once they started to get to this new territory, they started to spread these diseases, and there was millions of people who died. Also, the second deadly consequence, and you'll hear a lot about this throughout the rest of U.S. history, there is a lot of fighting. There are a lot of battles that take place. And a lot of the times they were treaties that were agreed upon by the U.S. government or the provisional government, whatever you want to call it. A lot of those treaties were broken. And there were a lot of deadly battles that take place. But it is something that did happen in our U.S. history and is something that I think it's important for us to learn about. So I'll stop it here, and next video we will talk a little bit more about early settlement of the Europeans.